All right, hello everybody. I'm Josiah, and we have Dave Canales on deck, and we're gonna see what he's saying and see what he's not saying after that crazy preseason game. Let's get to it.
Well, that was a lot of fun. Just the back and forth of it, a really good game. Mike LaFleur, somebody that I've known for a long time, really doing a good job with that group. They ran the ball really well today. But the guys were resilient, and finish is what we talk about. Finish is what we preach as a team. We practice for these situations, end a half, end a game, put us in the best, use the timeouts, move the ball. Haynes did a fantastic job just keeping the play alive. Whatever you had to do, run it, throw it, doesn't matter. Move the chains and keep it alive. So really proud of the group, and then just got to talk about, Jonathan Cooley called the game on the defensive side today, and it was a fantastic operation, getting the calls in, appropriate calls at the right time. Really pleased with the rhythm that he had, and then Brad, same thing on the offensive side, getting the calls in early so the guys could be organized, and just a big shout out to all the coaches. We had a couple receivers show up 2 days ago, spending the whole time on the plane at the hotel for 2 days, just getting them ready to play. So really proud of the group and the way that they played our play style today.
What a game. I have never seen a preseason game that good. Granted, obviously, I'm biased, so take it as you will. But that game was fantastic. That third and long run by Haynes King, freaking incredible. And then, of course, the game-winning touchdown run. I was hyped, almost really just the same as if it was a regular season game. But for the Panthers, I do want the reporters to ask some questions about the defense, in particular the secondary. There were multiple blown coverages, some guys really just getting outplayed, sometimes even outworked. There were some good defensive plays too. Defensive line was also relatively solid, better than I thought they were going to be honest. So definitely still some question marks, but let's see what he has to say.
Plays before that touchdown, it was a 3rd and 14 where he decided to keep it and run. You have the presence of mind to get out of bounds.
Yeah.
How much have you noticed that kind of football IQ with him, and how much of that is stuff y'all worked on since he's gotten here?
She's a little quiet, but she's asking about Haynes King, about his football IQ, because on that crazy 3rd and long run, he also got out of bounds because there was limited time. Freaking incredible.
Oh, we taught him everything he knows. These are things that he did, throughout his career. And the bottom line is move the chains. And, they were playing a lot of match coverage with one backer inside. So they kind of just drained everybody out. And, typically you play a mobile quarterback like that, there's someone spying for the quarterback. And they were playing, pretty much like the preseason coverages. And so he saw it open up. They had good coverage on it. He took the yards and kept the drive alive. So that was a really good play. Not a chance, not for a second. No ties, no overtime in the preseason. 4 downs the whole way. Brad knew it, and that kind of is why the nature of some of the calls came out at the end there, because we knew we had an extra down to play with.
Dave, 6 out of the final 7 drives end up points. What did you think of the way Brad managed the game offensively and how he kind of played to your player's strength?
Yeah, the great challenge is just like knowing which group you have in and how you can utilize different players. And so, tip my hat to Brad, just being able to say, who's my back? What can we do with this guy? Which wideouts do I have in there? And really, that's the challenge of trying to go through a preseason, is to work with a different group of guys. But the operation was great. Timely calls in end of half, timely calls at the end of game. Good balance of the run game and the play actions like we like to see, and we missed a couple of shots down the field, but the ball went up. And so I was really proud to be able to take some of those ops, and Arizona made theirs. We didn't make ours. So that's something that we're going to have to address when we get to film.
The other thing, too, that Dave hasn't mentioned is that even though some of those deep throws missed, we did still get some defensive penalties on the Cardinals for some of those deep throws, especially in the first or second quarter when Kenny Pickett was still out there. He was able to get a couple of those, which saved some drives. So, yeah, they didn't always work. Definitely something to focus more on in practice, but, it wasn't always terrible.
What did you see with some of the struggles with the secondary against Carson?
Yes. There you go, David Newton. Asking about the secondary that definitely did have some weaknesses, and they were even missing tackles, too, a lot.
First of all, let's talk about Carson Beck. I mean, he operated like a professional, and he looked fantastic. He was accurate. He was on time. Our rush was decent. He got the ball out and threw some really beautiful passes down the field, up the sideline on some double moves. over the middle to be able to keep some drives alive, in some pretty hard third down situations. So tip my hat to him right there. And then, of course, just from our defensive standpoint, we got to stay on top. You got to own the deep ball. We have to be there. Our safeties showed up in an impactful way. Lathan Ransom, Isaiah showed up on another one on the sideline, knocked the ball away. Damani had a really nice, basically touchdown-saving tackle on a play that Devontae Smith tripped on. So, the safeties were in position. The corners got to make plays out there on the perimeter, and everything else was pretty solid.
You coached it with Brazel going.
Okay, so we kind of got an answer there. He gave us like basic defensive principles that some of the cornerbacks definitely struggled with, especially just like staying on top. But they really were just outplayed by some of those receivers. They had Brooks looking like Larry Fitzgerald, seconds coming. But I really do think they're young. They're going to make mistakes like this. We can't overreact to it too much. But there does need to be a focus on, we have enough talented receivers on our roster where we should be able to help these guys be more disciplined.
Down.
Yeah.
The other wide receivers have gotten a challenge, like Jimmy Horn and Jasim Reed and Casey Washington. Those guys needed to step up. You've also put some of those guys off at kick returner.
Yeah.
How much is that about getting excessive value out of that fourth or fifth wide receiver position?
It's critical because you play the game with 3 wideouts for the most part. And guys rotate in and out a little bit here and there. So if a guy's coming out of a game with 10 or 12 plays, he's got to be able to contribute on special teams. Jasim was all over all the phases, returns, covering kicks, different things like that. And John Mechie got a nice return, showed something really cool there too. So Jimmy had a couple nice ones. So all these guys, they understand, like, whatever, the more that I can do to help the team, the better that my chances are to be able to be here on the 53 and make the team. So I love the competitions happening in the receiver room.
Yeah. You can't help but feel pretty good after what we saw. All the receivers were relatively decently involved, but we saw some like small flashes from guys like Jimmy Horn, John Mechie, and then Jasim Reed, someone that we've been talking about in a lot of these interviews, really starting to show himself some too. I think a lot to be excited about with these backup receivers right now.
First game was preseason, some danger simulated in practice. Tell us some good and some bad that came out of the offense tonight.
Yeah.
The question was about tell us some good and bad about the offense today. He might have said offense and defense, but at least the offense.
First drive, just a couple of missed opportunities in the pass game, and we really weren't establishing the run game till about the third drive. That was a successful drive. So it kind of all started there. The offensive line settled in, worked their combos, moved the line of scrimmage, and then we were able to have more favorable D&Ds where we could throw our pass. So that was that's something that we definitely have to talk about, is just making sure that we can get that run game going early and so that it balances the whole thing out. On a positive side, moving the chains, the tight ends were like the star of the show today. A lot of balls in the flat, guys turning up, making yards. James Mitchell, JT Sanders early on. Even Caven Priesthorn had a nice catch at the end there. So love the tight end position coming alive for us there, making some plays. And then the wideouts, the whole group really were making plays. And I was really pleased with the running backs. I mean, from start to finish, A.J. Dillon, some incredible runs. You saw Trey Tice, even though he had the fumble, it was an incredibly tough physical run. And then, of course, Miles Davis rips one off. I think that's got to be our longest run since I've been here in the preseason. And so I was happy to see him get to the next level and see what he can do.
Yeah, and I know Dave hasn't seen the tape either, but also the Tyus fumble is one of those that you're never happy when a guy fumbles, but it was a hell of a punch out against him too. So it's one of those like, hey, you got to, hold the ball, avoid fumbling, but it was one of those like, hey, at least it wasn't like a super silly mistake, and made up for it with a touchdown. Never bad.
We saw Leggett warm up. What's the latest on his singer?
Yeah.
And then JT, what's the status of his ankle? Even though he mentioned that?
JT's great. Xavier went through the whole workout, no issues. He feels fine. I talked to him. He said he feels great. He's back. So looking forward to getting back to practice on Sunday and getting those guys rolling. Yep. It's okay.
To go back to the final play, I know it's just preseason.
Yep.
Pretty exciting.
That was quick. That was quick of Xavier Leggett, and we talk about it a lot. Dave Canales likes to ramble a good bit when there's something he doesn't really want to talk about, and I think he's just being honest there. X is looking good enough to at least practice.
Team seemed to really celebrate it. First of all, can you talk about the the joy that sort of brings. And also, what was the call too? Was it, I'm assuming he wasn't supposed to be.
Well, yeah, so I mean, I can talk about the sequence kind of leading up to it. First of all, an amazing job, Jimmy making a really tough contested catch on the sideline. Everybody hustling down. We practice this over and over all throughout camp and our walkthroughs, getting set and getting the ball killed so we had enough time to take that first shot, kind of missed that fade ball a little bit high, but he threw it quickly and flat so we had at least some time. They had 3 seconds left, so I haven't seen a 3-second play before, but I love that we got a little home cooking here in Canton. But so that gave us some time for Brad to call his best play. They huddled. It was organized, and they covered us really well. They had one guy left in the box, and Haynes is a fantastic athlete, and he just find a way to win, and that's what he did. So really proud of the group, and also proud of the whole team just celebrating. You know, that's something that we pride ourselves on, is celebrating how hard we work on these situations and then watching it come alive.
You mentioned earlier this week, like,
Man, that final drive, and honestly the entire game after the first couple of rough drives that we'll just leave up to Russ, but Kenny Pickett, still some room for development in a few areas here and there. Everybody, still a first preseason game, everyone needs to get better, all that stuff. But finishing drives and not ruining drives by getting outside of field goal range too often. Like, that's the kind of football you want to see, consistently getting points on the board. Still need to focus on defense. Looks like there's 1 or 2 more questions here. Still haven't focused on the defense enough about some specific mistakes from specific players in particular, but they probably just want to focus on the positives here. It was a good win.
wanting Haynes to understand just move the chains however you need to do
Yep.
it. He's also talked a lot about wanting to prove he's not just mobile, he can pass.
Yeah.
How
He
do you
did.
balance wanting him to grow, but also just tapping into that part of his ability?
It's part of the growth process, and forever and ever. Of course, I was spoiled to have Russell Wilson early on in his career, and when you covered us well, he took off and ran, and that was a good thing. And we moved the chains. When we called play actions, he was just as likely to run the ball as he was to throw the ball down the field for an explosive. And so there are different ways to make big plays in this game. There's no formula. We're not trying to make Haynes anything other than what he is. And so just letting him kind of grow into that. And he's made a concerted effort to be in timing and rhythm, and you saw some of that too. So
I am riding the high. I can tell I am delusional right now. So take every word I say with a grain of salt. But a Russell Wilson comparison, I don't even think that's that crazy, because there were a ton of similarities there. And I love Dave's mindset here. Is don't try and put your beast in a box. Let him see what the field's giving him. And you saw on that last play, they were focusing purely on coverage, a ton of open space in the field for him to run on that long 3rd and 14 or whatever it was. And on the final play, they were like, oh, he's probably not going to run it again. And so he was like, oh, y'all think I won't? And he will. And that's the kind of confidence you see from a young player, because they have a coach that allows them to play freely. I love that mindset so much. And it makes so much sense and I forget sometimes that he was with Seattle so early on, before he was with the Bucks, and he has experience with that. So good.
Dave, Jimmy's had a relatively quiet summer, at least from a pass catching standpoint in practice. Is it just that he's a gamer, or what are you seeing from him that maybe we're not seeing, just from the surface?
yeah, I think sometimes it's just the nature of it. I've been a receivers coach at times where it's just we need to see this guy with the ball, and the play just doesn't work out that way. And I think it's just happenstance with Jimmy. But what I've seen from him is I've seen growth over the course of a year, going through another full off season, and he's been doing really well. He's been on it. He understands the concepts. He's still finding that timing and rhythm with the quarterbacks. But the more that he makes these plays, and when you see him, his flash plays, he's really fast, and that always works on game day. And so I'm so glad to see him show up today. That was a big one for him, just as we continue to go through camp. Thank you.
Good stuff, good win. And also, what he mentioned about Jimmy Horn there makes a ton of sense, too. We knew of him coming out of college. He was a little rough around the edges when it comes to things like route running and really everything besides pure speed. But he's proving he's slowly but surely progressing in the right direction. I think yesterday's game showed that. And, there's a lot more for him to develop. That's what the preseason's for. And hopefully we see more flashes, because in these preseason or training camp practices so far, we've heard his name mentioned here and there, but he hasn't been a focal point like a Reed, who we kind of knew was going to be very involved and have some big performances like he did yesterday. So good stuff, good win. Hopefully can keep it up. We'll keep doing these interviews, but I want to know how y'all feeling, Panther fans and anyone who watched that game last night. Hard to not be hype after that. But yeah, like, subscribe if you want to. If not, I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.